Hello, everyone. My name is Arwal Jasser. The one in the back, do you hear me clearly? Guys, do you hear me clearly? Okay. Huh? Half and half? Okay, I'll try to raise my voice. Huh? Yeah, come. Because I hate holding the mic, so sorry for that. People on the back, try to come closer so you hear clearly. I think that's all sound. Sorry for those who were waiting from 5:30 something. I'll reintroduce myself. My name is Arwal Jasser. I'm a business graduate. Worked in the public sector for almost 3 years. Then decided to change my career. I get into development by joining Coded, the first bootcamp. After that, I liked coding and I totally decided to change my career. So I still consider myself learning in process. I love exploring stuff, getting into new technologies, reading about them, and knowing what's going on in the world. So yeah, I'm a member now of the WTM. And we promote free sessions for tech people, providing and building the communities. And basically, this is our first session after the long summer vacation. The session before that was Google Assistant with engineer Hussein Mohammed. And after the next upcoming big event we're having is DevFest. We're considering doing 2 workshops and open space code labs, which is, I took the idea from the Google I.O. First, let me say that I'm the first WTM-sponsored Kuwaiti to attend the Google I.O. in San Francisco in 2018. And that's one of the privileges of being in a community such as WTM, which is supported by Google. They're giving us the resources and sponsor us for such an event. So coming from the I.O., I really liked Flutter. Let's talk about Flutter. What's Flutter? Google announced Flutter in 2017, I.O. 2017, in its alpha version. Then in this year, they released the beta version, which is the stable version they're having. Still considered a new technology. But since the announcement in the I.O., the repository in GitHub was the highest contribution for, I think, almost 1 week or 2 weeks. So it's a good, I think, indicator, a positive one from developers that they really like the framework. Okay, it's an open source toolkit. It works for both Android and iOS. Okay, whose Flutter is for? Designers. Coverage a brand-driven experience on Android and iOS. Prototypers, Google has been able to build a prototype to show, especially if you're a startup, you want to show a prototype for your future venues or vendors, let's say. So you can build a prototype within a week if you're an experienced developer. If not, it took you 2 to 3 weeks maybe. So that's how easy Flutter is. What's great about Flutter? You can develop both iOS and Android from one code base, have a very rapid development cycle, thanks to features such as hot reload, which we'll be getting to later on. It's developed in Dart, Dart is also a new language which is developed for Flutter and by Google. Full support of material design, animation, and native navigation. Very high performance render at 60 frames per second. Completely cross-platform, compiled to native code, and have consistent look and feel on both platforms. So this is an image of both Android and iOS. See how they look exactly similar with the padding and the aligning of the whole design. So, design-oriented development flow. You can easily, quickly build beautiful UIs with Flutter. So basically, this is an example of a page in an app which considered have an image, title, location, some ratings, some buttons of call, route, and share, and some description. Okay, so if we want to diagram the layouts, we would see it consists of 4 columns. And those columns would be like, each one is considered as a row with a child, and each one is considered, some of the child is considered as column with as well 2 childs. Let's just to simplify stuff here. For those with HTML and CSS, sorry. For those with HTML and CSS experience, you can see the dialogue here between the HTML and in Flutter, and how the div with a class of gray box, which has text, can be developed in to a container which has a child of text. Then you would specify its style, and then the width, height, color of that text. Okay, optimized performance. Okay, so we said that Flutter comes with its own widgets and renderer. No support library is needed. It compiles to native code. No reliance on OEM widgets, and no bridge needed. And structural repainting. This is just, sorry for a second, because this is supposed to be updated. Okay. So this is an example of an OEM SDK view. This is how your native code, your application, interact with the platform through widgets. Then it calls the canvas and events. And the code as well goes through the location, audio, camera, and the services, basically. This is a simple comparison we're gonna do here, right? Between the native apps, the web view, React, and how Flutter is different. So this is a web view, basically. You need to use a bridge to access these services. And you need to add some JavaScript layer to add to show a web view, and therefore the canvas and events. This is a simple modification with React. See how the bridge is going on both for the platform and services. Now with the difference in Flutter. Flutter doesn't use any kind of bridge. It just go to widgets rendering, native codes, then using the platform channels to access the services. Okay. Let's talk about the power of the widgets. So basically, Flutter team analyzed the popular apps and noticed a lot of custom widgets. So Flutter is designed to allow for that. Flutter is basically, you can customize any widgets, and widgets can take any kind of form. That's just simple explanation of what is widgets. Widgets are the basic building blocks of a Flutter app user interface. Each widget is an immutable declaration of part of the user interface. Flutter has a constant, unified object model, the widget. Basically, it can take a structural element like a button or link. It can be a font or color, a stylist element, or aspect of layout as padding. Am I talking? Because I hate using it. I'll try my best. Okay. So this is, you can see that it's unlike the other frameworks that separate views and the view controller, layout, and other properties. Okay. This is an example of how the Flutter framework works, and that each layer builds upon the previous layer. Do I have to? I really hate my mic, sorry. Okay. So for an instance, the material and Cupertino layers compose basic widgets from the widgets layer, which itself orchestrates from the rendering layer. And that's how it goes. At each layer, you can customize your own widgets to whatever needs you need. So this allows a customized framework as you please as the part of Dart's checking mechanism. Okay, so this is a video explaining widgets in Flutter.
Hi everyone, I'm Martin from the Flutter team, and today I'm going to show you how Flutter's widget composition can help you quickly build out a beautiful interface for your applications. If you haven't tried Flutter yet, it's Google's new mobile UI SDK that can help you quickly build native iOS and Android apps from a single code base. Widgets are the building block of any app built with Flutter, and their functionality spans from provide.
Let me see. Sorry for that. في هذا. I hope that's enough.
Adding a framework for your entire app, like the scaffold widget, to accepting input like text field does, or even animating an ink splash. Every widget has its own particular purpose, and you, the developer, build your app through composition, putting individual widgets together until they add up to a great interface. Let me give you an example. Say you're an engineer at a shop that builds mobile apps for other companies. And one day, your biggest client comes to the office and says, "We have to talk about an action button on our shopping app. The look just isn't working. We need something that really feels like our brand." As a Flutter developer, you can say, "No problem, have a seat and I'll pull up the code." All right, so here's your client's app. And if we zoom in, you can see this default looking floating action button. There's nothing wrong with the basics, but you can see why the client might want something a little more custom. And here's the code that produces the UI you just saw. It's written in the Dart programming language, which is what Flutter uses. There is the My Homepage class up at the top. And here's the bit we're interested in, the floating action button. Let's create a new file and define a new widget to use instead of the default. We'll call it Fancy Button. There we go. Let's import a couple of the basic Flutter packages. There's the foundation, and the material package that's got a ton of widgets in it. And I'll define fancy button as an extension of stateless widget. I'm going to skip over the details of stateless widget for now. The important thing, as far as we're concerned, is that stateless widgets don't have mutable properties or state that can change. You just construct one and it's good to go. Speaking of properties, let's give the button a callback for when it's pressed. And we'll need a constructor to inject the callback. So let me add that. If you're new to Dart, you may not have seen this in a constructor before. It just means that the constructor should have a parameter that matches the property and handles the assignment for you. I can also put braces around the parameter to make it an optional named parameter. You'll see how this works when this gets invoked. And use the required annotation to make sure it's always passed in. And there's one method I need to implement here, which is build. This is called by Flutter, and it's basically a way of asking your widget, hey, who are your children? What widgets are below you in the hierarchy? I've just got a placeholder null in here so that I can go back to my home page. Let's get the new file imported, and then I'll come down here and replace the default button with my widget. And you can see the name parameter for onPressed. I'll give it the same method that the other button was firing. Okay, let's get back to fancy button and the build method. This is where the composition happens. I'm going to start putting child widgets together to define how this widget looks and performs. Let's start with some text. Maybe the client wants the button to say purchase. Now I'm going to build this. And since this is the first build, it's going to take a few seconds. Once the app is up and running, we can use hot reload to cut the refresh time to less than a second. But more on that later. In the meantime, there's the interface. And there's the word purchase in the corner. So we've got something going. Okay, so we need this widget to do more than just print black text. And in Flutter, you can add capability by putting widgets together. So let's wrap the text with a basic button called raw material button. The text widget now becomes its child. And I'll add a comment at the end here so that the auto formatter makes it look nice and pretty. Raw material button has a few properties. So let's start with color. I'll fill it with deep orange and use regular orange for the ink splash. Now let's save and do a hot reload. That's going to update the app's code without restarting the app. And there's my updated button in about 400 milliseconds. Now I'm tapping on the button here, and as you can see, there's no splash, which is because we haven't given this raw material button anything to do. So let's give it the fancy buttons on press callback and a hot reload later. I get a nice splash. What's next? Say the client wants a rounded button. I can do that by giving mine a stadium border as its shape. And I can call that constructor with the const keyword here. That's always nice. In fact, it reminds me, I don't need the new on raw material button. The new keyword is optional in Dart 2, so I can pop it right out. Okay, let's hot reload and see the new shape. Boom, rounded edges. This quick cycle of making a change, see the result, making the change, see the result, is something Flutter was designed from the start to provide. All right, what else can we do? Let's give the text a little more pop by changing it to white. There's a style property for text widgets that can help me with that. We can give it a text style object with the color set to white. Okay, I've got some white text. What about more padding? Sounds like a fun job for the padding widget. I'll wrap the text in an instance of padding, and I'll make it symmetrical, 8 for vertical and 20 for horizontal. And hot reload. There's the padding. What else might the client want? How about an icon? A lot of buttons have icons. Problem here is that padding takes a single child, but we want it to have 2, text and an icon. So we need a container. Flutter has a number of them, and they are, as you probably guessed, also widgets. We can use a row widget to display the icon and text widgets next to each other horizontally. Instead of a child property, row has a property called children, which takes a list of widgets. Let me finish up by getting the icon in there. Right. And now to hot reload again. And whoa, that's not right. Looks like I forgot to set the main axis size for the row. The main axis for a row is horizontal, so this code tells the row widget to use the smallest amount of space it can. All right, let's hot reload again. There we go. This is another nice thing about hot reload. I just messed up the UI by forgetting to set a property, and I was still able to go back, add a fix, and keep going without a restart. Next, how about a little space between the icon and text? There's a great widget for that called sizebox. You can give it a dimension or two, and it'll take up some space. And you know what? All three children of the row are constants, so let's just move that const up to the list itself. There we go. All right. Hot reload. And there's sizebox at work. Not bad. At this point, we've composed a completely new button with 6 widgets, each of them handling its own particular responsibilities and combining to give the client a button that's vibrant and unique. So far, we've mostly used widgets to control basic presentation details, but they can do a lot more. For example, say you're displaying an image and you'd like to know when the user taps on it. Just wrap the image in a gesture detector widget. There are properties for taps, long presses, drags, and more. Just like the graphics focus widgets you've seen, gesture detector handles its one particular area of responsibility, and that's it. All right, let's get back to the app and put some more widgets to work. Okay, we're back with the button. Let's say the client's so impressed with what you've done that they really want to push the envelope. How about a vertical floating action button? No problem. There's a widget for rotating other widgets. It's called rotated box, and we can give it 3/4 turns. And get this, which, you know, it's vertical and everything. But maybe just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should. So let's pack it out with the remove widget. You can use rotated box on a lot of stuff though. Say the client preferred the little compass icon to point the other way. No problem. There it is, leaning back instead of forward. By the way, so far I've been composing with widgets that are part of core Flutter, but it works the same with widgets built from scratch. For example, let me drop some code in here real quick. Say I had another widget that I'd already built called Pulse Animator, and with a child property of its own, and its job was to apply a pulsing animation to the child. You can use the same composition strategy with it that you do with the stock widgets. Here, I'll add it to the hierarchy and make this text its child. And when I hot reload, there's the animation. So there you go. That's 8 widgets in combination to make a great button and a happy client. So now we've got an updated app and a happy client, all thanks to widget composition. That's it for today. But if you'd like to learn more about Flutter, we've got links to guides, sample apps, and a bunch of other resources in the video description below. So check those out and head to flutter.io to get started today.
So this is a simple introduction to widgets, and how did he start with the basic widgets that comes with Flutter, then he customized it based on his needs. So since Flutter is a new framework that's recently been advertised for, let's say, since May 2018, which is like 3 months old almost. Flutter been like announcing features on a weekly basis, and this is a feature that was released yesterday. Don't worry, this is a very short video, I think 40 seconds or so.
Rows and columns are great for laying out widgets, but sometimes you run out of room. One of the widgets that can help is wrap. Wrap lays out its children one at a time, a lot like a row or column, but when it runs out of space, it just wraps to the next line. You can use the direction property to tell it whether to run vertically or horizontally, and there's alignment and spacing properties as well. Wrap works really well with things like dialog buttons and chips. For more info on Wrap and all the other Flutter widgets, head to flutter.io.
I think that's the widget that was announced yesterday. Sorry for the mistakes. Let's just, I think this is recording. Yeah, 1 minute video.
Flutter has a lot of widgets to help with explicit animations, ones that you, the developer, code up. But there are also widgets for implicit animations, those that animate changes for you. A good one to know is Animated Container. You can build it once with a particular attribute, like color, and when you rebuild it with a different value, say in response to a set state call, Animated Container performs a linear interpolation between the two values. And it's more than just colors. You can animate borders, border radii, background images, shadows, gradients, shapes, padding, width, height, alignment transforms, and more. The length of the animation is controlled by the duration parameter. And you can also specify your own curve to customize the effect. There are a bunch of other widgets to help with implicit animations too. So head to flutter.io for more info.
So now we will talk about the efficient tooling within the Flutter framework. And you would meet some of those when we go through the setup in the next, after the talk. So we have the Flutter Doctor, which checks your environment and display report to the terminal window, and the Flutter updates, which updates both the SDK and the packages. You can even specify the package to a certain version. See how it's specifying the Firebase, it's either larger or equal to 1.2, yet it's less than version 2. And the Flutter packages get, which checks your environment and display to, the reports, Flutter package upgrades. The one that I liked is the hot reload, injecting update source code file into running Dart virtual machine. And I think in the next slide, you'd see a live example of how he's doing the changes and how the hot reload is showing them. Once he clicks on the hot reload, the one that's like a bolt on the upper right, you can see the changes showed immediately in the app. So now the counter is increasing up to 4 times. He changed the tab into click, and then he will change now the counter to minus. So whenever he clicks on the plus button, the number of times will be decreased. So that's a really great feature to reduce time and over the development and debugging. Okay. So Dart's Observatory, it's the one who allows you to peek inside the running Dart virtual machines and provide a live immediate reporting. Observatory features allows you to determine when an app is spending its time, examine allocated memory, articles, websites that I found useful. I can share the slides here. Sorry. I can share some of those links with you guys once you join in our channel on Slack. One of my best articles, to be honest, is the first one from Hacker Noon. What's revolutionary about Flutter? Okay, and some YouTube videos that explain Flutter frameworks and get into I think each video is 1 hour long, so we cannot cover it right now. So we will cover Dart shortly. Dart is the language that Flutter uses. So why Dart and why a new language? Dart is an ahead-of-time compiled, fast, predictable native code, which allows almost of all Flutter to be written in Dart. It also can be just-in-time compiled exceptionally, cycles. And that's what makes it easier to do 60 frames per second for animations. So Dart, developers found that Dart has similar features as the both static and dynamic languages. It allows Flutter to avoid the need for separate declarative layouts such as XML and JSX. And those are some of the useful links that I found about Dart. If you guys want to go check any of those out. Okay. Flutter Showcase. So one of the biggest adapters of Flutter is Alibaba. Alibaba has announced their own app, Flutter. Google AdWords, Apple App3, and Topline. I don't know about those last two applications, but I have used Alibaba applications recently, and it's really it was a really great experience with me. And basically, that's the whole thing. And thank you all, and don't forget to grab the pizza. Okay, I think the pizza is late, so sorry for that. We can go now for the Flutter setup, if you guys want to go through it, and get into a code lab, which is around 75 minutes. So I think we will do that for now. Then we will grab a pizza. Sure. Guys, if anyone want to grab a drink, you got Coke and 7-Up over there, as well as water. And inshallah, hopefully the pizza will come soon.
Okay. So, the tool is good for prototyping.
Yeah.
Used by designers.
Yeah.
It's not a designer job, like doing coding. Unless she you did not demonstrate it.
هو أكيد في أشياء أنا I did not demonstrate.
Design prototype of one application.
You are the designer, you can learn Flutter more quickly, comparing it to the HTML and CSS analog, as we said, as we've seen in the previous slide. And then you can prototype within a week, because I have read few cases that they book their prototype within days. You're talking nothing. It's design. Yeah. You would prototype in Dart. You would write code. That's
There's no like drag and drop tool.
That's it.
It's not much.
No. You will need to learn that, and you will need to write some code. But once you get the whole concept, I think it would be easier for a designer to so just say hi, just write them down. And the Hot Wheels feature, which I personally like, is the one that makes the whole process way easier. I mean, within a second, you can just change.
Have they done or planning to do any integration third-party design to speed up the process?
I'm not aware.
What tool you go to? It's called Flutter, and it's what you're looking for.
Something.
عم في تصوير انستغرام لايف.
So the end tools,
عزيزي الفيصل.
لازم واتساب.
it's called Flutter Studio. It's already exposed.
Some people have it more.
Because dragging and dropping will get you like limit 60% of the work, and the real beat is the 40%. It says like if you want to, you're creating a shopping cart application, you can drag and drop the box, but the image will have to come from the database.
So do a brief overview of everything.
They're not going to
Because it takes too long and he's given up. Hussein.
That doesn't take too long. It takes lots of downloading.
Update the iPhone packages, Android packages, everything. Then you can start working better, right?
I already
هذا كله should have been in the email. المفروض لما قلنا لهم set up income أسهل. Because now just going over the whole thing. When you've done it, this is what you do.
Okay.
Fine?
We can go through the mic.
خليه يجي قدامك. ولي setting خليه قدامك.
ما بحب الماركت.
لا تمسكينه خليه.
يعني
قاعد يسوي Because I want to see the screen.
I'll see the mirroring.
So there's a lot of what's called low-code platforms that you can basically they are one step above what this is. You basically click and drag, and you point to a button and say, "I want when someone presses this to go this," and then it just generates some other great code. But this the problem with these platforms is the good thing is you don't need to learn how to code. You just app like 5 minutes. The issue is tomorrow when someone says, okay, now I want you to use the GPS sensor and use the camera to click a picture, and here's the thing for you.
No, I can't.
So,
And then now
how do you share?
so what do you think is cheaper? Using the local apps or doing Flutter? What do you think?
To me, not concerned with Flutter is using more some of what you can do HTML. I'm concerned that you cannot do that.
الحين الديفلوبمنت فري. إذا بغيت أسوي ببلش على الأندرويد
Because
مثلا
HTML
ولا
doesn't
الآيفون
run,
بياخذون بعدهم تشارج.
the fidelity you can get will always be
غير إن أنا أسوي لي أكونت
تصدق ما قريت شيء عن هالنقطة؟
بعضهم كذي يمسكون يخلونك تطورون وتسوون تخلصون آخر شيء تسوون ببلش إن شاء الله دفع لايسنس.
but you'll always be restricted by the
قلت الحين بالعكس قبل لا أبدأ أبيلو أول شيء أشوف الببليكيشن.
simply because the Flutter runs.
أتوقع قريت نقطة إن it was an easy publication بس إنه ما أدري عن الفيز ولا إنه ياخذون شيء ولا لا ما أدري. راح يحتاج الجوجل.
يمكن ياخذون اشتراك بعد. انا ما عندي مشكله ادفع اشتراك حق الايفون وادفع كامل، بس حق الثيرد بارتي بعد ما كان خلص.
components logic,
هل
especially the way the layout works.
هل نجرب ونشوف منو اللي يتأخر منو يتأخر؟ لا أعتقد مو كلهم هذا تكنيكال باك جراوند.
بس يبرمجون على الويندوز ولا لازم ماك؟
أتوقع يصير على الويندوز.
So like how do you find colors using hex code?
لأن أنا قاعد أشوف أحد الريكوايرمنتس إني أنزل إكس كود.
سير اب ويندوز. لا كان يصير ويندوز.
زين إذا في
هذا one of the things في الماك. You need to download Xcode so that it can convert it to the iOS application. That's why but it's fine. I think working with Windows as well.
until J ولا
You can use until J for they have a Dart plugin.
قبل شوي قاعد أشوف شيء اسمه فلاتر ستوديو.
Flutter Studio أنا نسيته. شفته بأمريكا ونسيته. You can just I think drag and drop. وأعتقد إنه you can like حمل في feature إنه تكتب كود and you can. I think that's the idea.
Whatever platform you're using is compatible with iOS 12 or you can update it. There's no substitution. It always compiles to the native. There's pros and cons in there. A lot of companies, what they do is they say, okay, here's what I do. I'll create the code once and I'll launch it on Android.
هو هذا الإيفنت اليوم.
والسلايدات.
السلايدات للحين ما حطيتهم بس أنت من الناس اللي already مضيوفين.
إيه أنا طقيت تشيكي بس
But we found out that it has issues. We just don't know the system. You have to build things from scratch if you don't know the
إذا دازت لي
You have to use whatever.
خلاص وصل لك إيميل.
If
فمعناته
it already uses
الحين راح أحط يفترض نرش لكم إيميل سلاك
material design. All the
channel
widgets are material.
تدشون
If you
عليه
have any kind of
ومن
React
بعد
widget,
نقدر أنا راح أسوي لكم شير
زين
فور السلايدز.
زين الاستوديو ولا الكمبايلر وين حصله؟
Google Design React
إيش قصدك؟
أساس يعني هذا مطبق عليه.
specifically to
ويب
optimize.
سايت فلاتر
How web
في الدوكيومنتيشن ماله تمشي.
So Dart is actually already
لا
done.
لا أقصد حق
So Dart was designed to make web applications very easy.
إيه
You don't have to
عندك
worry
يا
about the browser.
أنا
One pixel here,
Yeah.
اللي
pixel
أعرف
there.
اسمه فلاتر ستوديو.
This the Dart system.
إيه في فلاتر ستوديو
Very good. For web, and they
في
said,
تقدر تستخدم
what else
انتل
can
جي.
you do? Okay.
انتل جي
For mobile,
نفس
we use Dart, we call
باي تشارمز.
Flutter is basically Dart.
في عندهم دارت بلجن انا قاعد اتذكر انا شلون وين كتبته. انا كتبته ب اكس كود. اذا كان ماك واعتقد حتى من الاندرويد ستوديو تقدر تستخدمه.
أنا عندي هذا
اندرويد ستوديو
برمج فيه أنا فنفس الشيء وياي
نفس الشيء عادي. تفتح الفولدر البروجكتس فيه تبرمج الاساس.
زين.
انا اعتقد اني انا استخدمت الاكس كود ما اذكر يا ابو يا سام.
بس أفهم
camera, location, GPS.
فلاتر يعني هي لغة برمجة جديدة طالعة.
هو فلتر فريم اللغه دارت.
دارت اللي هي البيز مالها شنو؟ HTML؟
لا I'm not sure what's the base of it to be honest. بس إن هي اللغة أعتقد طالعة من 2011 powered by Google اسمها كان دارت. مبنية على أساس إن الأقرب مالها يسمونها اللغة حق الأندرويد.
HTML والجافا.
I think أقرب مالها
الجافا.
هذا الدارت انا ما قريت وايد بالدارت عشان اكون صريحه معك ما اقدر اعطيك بس الدوكيومنتيشن مال الدارت الويب سايت ماله يشرح تفاصيل كل لغه وشلون صار ومن وين كذي الكلاسز والستاتكس. فلاتر حق فلاتر في هني باللينك بالسلايدز اللي عندي السلايدز عندك اللي هو dartlang.org هي توها
And it's not the
مخترع
same. I
فيها
don't know why people are saying
المنظمة.
that.
فهذه
For me,
الداتا
designing is the
ما
most
صار
hardest thing.
سنتين.
I sit around,
فلاتر هو أول شيء ينكتب فيه داتا.
hold the finger,
أول
like
شيء
this,
يعني بس اساس ارتفاع هي لغه برمجه اشتغل اندرويد اي او اس
It's also more than
تستخدم
hard.
مع فلاتر. ما شفت لها استخدام ثاني.
But
أنا
there's
شخصيا
logic. So there's something that you know,
وانا
فلاتر شوف
even the
انا ضد
worst
يعني
designer
أنت
can
شنو
program because there's some logic.
تبرمج
But the best programmer can't design. If you can design, you're already more talented than the guy who can program. You just
بي
have
اتش بي
to
ولا رغب؟
لا انا اعرف
give yourself the benefit of the doubt.
بي اتش بي اللغة.
ايه
بي اتش بي هي داتا.
اوكي
اوكي بي اتش بي يكون ساعات لهم فريم وركس which is cake بي اتش بي.
Yeah, so like let's say you want to like you don't know how to write that code, but you know how you want to.
قال له انت
So
تكتب
you got to
فايل
show it the way you want to do it.
each other. لا هو فريم ورك هو اوريدي ضابط
And then you modify
ياخذ
the
الباك
code.
فانت
Like
تكتب
in the old days, you want to make a layout,
classes
you
with
go
one
to
file
the
built
front
in
page,
فيه
you design it, and then you see
فما
it's all
نقدر
the
اسوي
same. You don't need to
امبورت من اي مكان ثاني
That's how
تقدر تسوي import certain
very
libraries
first website.
بس how يعني you don't need
Same things happen
to say to the controller go to that view or read that view شلون بيرندر الراوتس مثلا خلاص you just specify the route and that's it. هذا فكرة الفريم which why it saves time. أنا I prefer frameworks على إني أنا أكتب PHP صافي.
Whenever you just open my phone, your app will be installed.
فبدار هو PHP Flutter is Laravel is the framework.
The 5 guys that were
هذه الفكرة. عندك إذا سامع بايثون وجانجو هو الفريم ورك بايثون اللغة.
ما تقدر تسمع بهذا
and
الرولوت
with all this information.
رولوت هذا
There is
برمجه
a
حق
there is a reason why
الروبوت
a lot of
يصير
developers are going
ان الروبوت هذا
to platforms like this.
يتعلم من نفسه خلاص
The challenge of
انا
these
بس
platforms is
تعطيه
they
الاوامر الاساسيه وهو بعدين
see it with productivity. You get 8 hours a day.
We sorry okay.
How much time do you have? Plus 8 hours versus if you're doing iOS.
Sorry. No problem. Thank you. So now we will start with the setup of Flutter. We got Wi-Fi's over here, 2 Wi-Fi's with their passwords. So it's a free access. I'm not sure how long the setup gonna take because one of the engineer Hussein was trying it, and I think you have to download the Android Studio as well as the Xcode, and that might take lots of time. Yeah. So let's just me start with running an application that I already did. Okay. You can start with going to sure. You can start with going to flutter.io to start with the documentation. You can download both Flutter on Mac and Windows, as well as Linux. Okay. So what we're gonna do right now is gonna be an open session. You're gonna start downloading and installing the Flutter on each one on their devices, since everyone is using a different operation system. Let me just give you the access to the code labs. Hey, come on. Okay, okay. This one. That's the link. So you can go have access to codelabs.developers.google.com. And well, they got tons of labs. We're gonna just search. Fortunately, there's not lots of code labs in Flutter. I thought I had another. Yeah. I hate that one. So here explaining building UIs with Flutter, Firebase, and writing your first app, part 1 and part 2. Each one is around 40 minutes, in total of 75 minutes. To share. اللي تطلبه.
السيد الأخضر يشوفوا شيء.
Just want to take some votes here. Do you guys want to do the code labs, or do you want me to show you my implementations? The second one? Do you have a USB Type C kind of wire? Okay.
خلاص ما يحتاج.
لا why not?
هذا
شنو هذا؟
بالواي فاي بس الموبايل شابك على نفس الواي فاي. حتى ايفون حتى اندرويد. Burhan, how are you? You don't remember me, right? It's free for 7 days, which is fine. Not sure إذا downloading ولا لا. downloading ما أدري صراحة وين شفت هذا.
لا هني يفترض تداونلود. لا هذا بزنس ماله.
Yes. It has a stylus.
ايوه
You need Xcode because it has the libraries that allow you to compile applications for iOS, and it gets you to see the just you have iOS. You see there is an installable source.
يلا شايف في I think هذا this one so I think this is too close كم أنا 80 هذا this is mine you can pick it up what happened I didn't touch it So is everyone installing Flutter or
Flutter SDK?
SDK? Yeah. Okay. So here's installing. Hamad, I'm guessing not. أخوه السلام شلونك؟ ما تشابهون. I think once you install the package, you can run the Flutter browser to see what it's I can The Flutter is not here. Now you can run the commands. Basically, we have a directly control. Guys,
This is really important.
hi everyone. Sorry for being on and off, but most of those who has laptops are installing, so we're going through with them. But everyone, pizza are served. They just arrived, so grab one and enjoy networking as well.
It's color underscore.
Usually Slack is used by many organizations. So this is Slack. You can see. So this is like a group you're building, and those are all subgroups.
So I just download this app. So
Yeah. And I can give you, I think, on the main page of the meetup, there is a link to the Slack channel where you can subscribe, and then I will add you to a Google Subscribe channel.
like cryptocurrency related kind of things. But like I just stopped using Slack for like a year, maybe 2 years, something like that.
I use when you're in a team, you use Slack.
Like everybody just uses
A text starter, usually it's like
and it was really curious because I looked at the website and it said Flutter.io. So I was like curious if you guys were like an ICO before or something like that. So not nothing like that. So it's kind of crazy how that so I was just curious.
actually our website is .com or .org.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find
That's an expired link. Let me just send you right now.
Because like I was starting to learn how to code like back in 2015, and then I got like a job offer, and I was just like super focused on the job. Like now I kind of want to get try to learn about coding, that kind of thing. But this looks way too advanced, like or like complex. Like
No. What do you code right now? Or you working?
I was starting
Your
to learn
background.
back in 2015. Mostly like promotion,
Okay.
networking. Like when it comes to like tech and coding, I'm a newbie. Quite frankly. So like that's why I'd say like most of the guys here, like everybody knows at least one programming language at the very least.
That's fine. It's fine. I'll just
So
create now the.
maybe it's too late for me.
It's never too late to learn programming, to be honest.